Zambia's currency surges 20% against the dollar. Here's what's happening. For decades, the US dollar has ruled global trade, debt, and power. But something unexpected is happening, and it's coming from Zambia. The Zambian Kwacha is showing strength that's raising eyebrows, shifting narratives, and challenging long-held assumptions about African currencies. Is this a temporary surge, or a sign of deeper economic change? Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, what a week it's been across the continent. From Lagos to Nairobi, from Cairo to Cape Town, the economic winds are shifting in ways we haven't seen in decades. But today, we're focusing our lens on a story that has left economists scratching their heads, investors scrambling to reassess their portfolios, and an entire nation daring to dream again. Picture this. A currency that was once the laughingstock of international markets, a monetary unit so battered by inflation and debt that citizens had lost faith in their own wallets. A nation where the exchange rate was a daily heartbreak, where salaries evaporated before they could pay for bread, where the relentless march of the dollar felt like an unstoppable force crushing the economic hopes of millions. Now imagine that same currency, in a matter of weeks, surging 20% against the almighty US dollar. Impossible? A statistical error? A temporary blip before the inevitable crash? What happens when a country's economic fortunes reverse so dramatically that the experts who predicted doom are suddenly left speechless? What forces, visible and invisible, conspire to turn a monetary disaster into what some are calling an economic resurrection? And perhaps most crucially, is this the beginning of a genuine transformation, or are we witnessing the dangerous euphoria before an even more devastating fall? When the Zambian Kwacha began its unprecedented climb, the question wasn't just how this was happening, it was why now, and more disturbingly, can it last? Because in the unforgiving world of African economics, nothing comes without a price. Every surge has its shadows. Every miracle has its skeptics. So what's really happening in Lusaka? Who's pulling the strings behind this monetary resurrection? And what aren't they telling us? Factual foundation. The revelation came to light in the first weeks of January 2025, when currency traders in Johannesburg, London, and New York began noticing something extraordinary on their screens. The Zambian Kwacha, which had been trading at approximately 27 Kwacha to the US dollar in late 2024, suddenly began a meteoric ascent. By mid-January 2026, the exchange rate had strengthened to below 22 Kwacha per dollar, a movement of over 20% in a matter of months. For a currency that had spent years in decline, this wasn't just unusual. It was unprecedented. The initial discovery came from forex traders at Standard Bank in Lusaka. On January 8, 2025, senior trader Mwamba Kalufia noticed the Kwacha gaining ground in ways that defied the typical patterns. At first, we thought it was a glitch in the system, he later told Bloomberg Africa. Currencies don't just do this. Not in our market. Not without something massive behind them. But this was no glitch. The sequence of events that led to this moment began much earlier, in October 2024, when Zambia successfully completed its debt restructuring agreement with international creditors. After defaulting on its external debt in 2020, becoming the first African nation to default during the pandemic era, Zambia had spent years locked in painful negotiations with bondholders and multilateral lenders. The breakthrough came on October 15, 2024, when Finance Minister Sitambiko Muzokatwain announced that Zambia had reached a comprehensive agreement with the Official Creditor Committee and Eurobond holders. The deal restructured over $6.3 billion in external debt, providing immediate fiscal relief and extending repayment timelines significantly. Then came the second catalyst. In November 2024, copper prices, Zambia's economic lifeblood, began a sustained rally on international markets. Driven by surging demand for electric vehicles and renewable energy infrastructure, copper hit $9,200 per metric ton by December, levels not seen since 2022. Zambia, Africa's second-largest copper producer, suddenly found its export revenues soaring. The Bank of Zambia recognized the opportunity. On December 12, 2024, Governor Denny Kaleilia announced a strategic shift in monetary policy. The central bank would begin aggressively accumulating foreign exchange reserves and would intervene to support the kwacha's stability. "We have turned a corner," Kaliyelia declared at a press conference in Lusaka. "The fundamentals are finally aligned." By early January 2025, foreign direct investment began pouring in. Mining companies announced expansion plans worth over $2 billion. International investors, sensing a turnaround story, started buying Zambian government bonds again. The kwacha's ascent became self-reinforcing, a virtuous cycle replacing years of vicious decline. Direct evidence. The most telling testimony came during a January 14 interview with Finance Minister Sitambiko Muzokatwain on Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation. The interviewer pressed him, "Minister, skeptics are saying this is artificial. They're saying the central bank is burning through reserves to prop up the kwacha. How do you respond?" Muzokatwain leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. Let me be very clear about this. The strengthening of the kwacha is not the result of unsustainable interventions. What we are seeing is the market responding to fundamentals. Real fundamentals. But the timing, Minister. The timing, Muzokatwain interrupted, is the result of years of difficult work. You see, when we defaulted in 2020, everyone wrote us off. Everyone said Zambia was finished. But we stuck to the restructuring process. We made the hard choices. We cut expenditures, we reformed our tax system, we negotiated in good faith with creditors who, quite frankly, had every reason to walk away. He continued, now, the debt restructuring, it freed up over $400 million annually in debt service that we no longer have to pay immediately. That money, that fiscal space, it allows us to invest in infrastructure, in agriculture, in economic diversification. And copper prices, they're being driven by global transition to green energy. This isn't a bubble. This is the future, and Zambia is sitting on the resources the world desperately needs. The interviewer asked, "What do you say to ordinary Zambians who have suffered through years of currency depreciation?" Muzokatwain's voice softened. I say we're not done. This is a beginning, not an end. The kwacha's strength, it means imported goods become cheaper. It means inflation comes down. It means your salary goes further. But I also say, please, be patient. We've been in the wilderness for a long time. Healing takes time. Bank of Zambia Governor Denny Kaliyelia was even more emphatic in his January 20th address to the Bankers Association of Zambia. Let me address the elephant in the room, Kaliyelia stated. Are we manipulating the currency? Absolutely not. Are we managing volatility? Absolutely yes. There's a difference, and it's an important one. He explained, our foreign exchange reserves have actually increased during this period. From $2.8 billion in October to over $3.4 billion today. We are not depleting reserves to defend the kwacha. We are accumulating them because of strong copper exports and returning investor confidence. So the question I'm asked is, how long can this last? And my answer is, as long as we maintain fiscal discipline and continue benefiting from favorable commodity prices. Is there risk? Of course. Copper prices could fall. Global demand could weaken. But right now, we are in the strongest position we've been in since 2015. From the opposition benches, however, came a different narrative. United Party for National Development Economics spokesperson Elias Mubanga told Radio Phoenix on January 18, "Look, I'm happy the kwacha is stronger. Every Zambian should be happy about that. But let's not pretend this is all because of government brilliance. The debt restructuring? That happened because we defaulted. We had to restructure. And copper prices? That's not government policy. That's global markets." He added, my real concern, is what happens when copper prices inevitably come down. Are we using this moment to diversify the economy? Or are we just enjoying the good news and hoping it lasts? Because if it's the latter, we're setting ourselves up for another crisis. Deeper analysis. The implications of Zambia's currency surge extend far beyond exchange rates and forex markets. What we're witnessing is a potential template or cautionary tale for other African nations trapped in cycles of debt, commodity dependence, and currency volatility. Dr. Lillian Ngoma, senior economist at the African Development Bank, offered this perspective in a recent analysis. Zambia's experience demonstrates that debt restructuring, when done properly, can provide the fiscal space necessary for economic recovery. But it also exposes our continued vulnerability to commodity price fluctuations. The kwacha is surging because copper is surging. What happens when that reverses? She raises a critical question: is this recovery genuine structural transformation, or simply a commodity supercycle creating the illusion of stability? The political dimensions are equally complex. President Hakainde Hichilema's administration has staked its reputation on economic recovery. The New Dawn government came to power in 2021 promising to fix the economy after years of UPND opposition to the Patriotic Front's spending policies. The kwacha's surge provides powerful vindication and potent political ammunition ahead of future elections. But critics point out the dangers of claiming too much credit. As political analyst Moa Kasanda notes, when leaders tie their legitimacy too closely to economic metrics they don't fully control, they create enormous vulnerability. If the kwacha weakens again, and it very well might, the political backlash could be severe. There are also unresolved questions about inflation and purchasing power. While a stronger kwacha theoretically reduces import costs and inflation, Zambia's inflation rate remains elevated at around 9 to 10%. Food prices, particularly for staples like mayalai meal, remain stubbornly high in many areas. Retailers Association of Zambia President Chiluba Mwengo explained the disconnect: the exchange rate improvement hasn't fully translated to lower prices yet because many retailers bought stock when the kwacha was weaker. It takes time for the currency gains to work through the supply chain. We should see more price relief in the coming months if the kwacha stays strong. If being the operative word. International observers are watching closely. The International Monetary Fund, which has a $1.3 billion extended credit facility with Zambia, praised the currency's stability in its latest review but cautioned against premature celebration. The fund emphasized the need for continued fiscal reforms, including reducing the public sector wage bill and improving tax collection. China, Zambia's largest bilateral creditor, has been notably silent about the currency movement. Some analysts speculate that China's participation in the debt restructuring, which included significant concessions, was predicated on expectations of continued Zambian policy cooperation. The kwacha's strength potentially reduces Zambia's debt burden in real terms, which may not align with all creditors' interests. And then there's the regional context. Other copper-producing nations, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Botswana, are watching Zambia's playbook carefully. Could similar debt restructuring and monetary strategies work elsewhere? Or are Zambia's circumstances, its particular mix of debt maturity, creditor composition, and commodity exposure, too unique to replicate? Perhaps most fundamentally, there's the question of sustainability. Currency strength built primarily on commodity prices is inherently unstable. Zambia's economy remains dangerously undiversified. Copper accounts for over 70% of export earnings. Agriculture, manufacturing, and services sectors remain underdeveloped relative to regional peers. Economic diversification isn't achieved in months or even years, it requires decades of sustained investment in education, infrastructure, and institutional capacity. The kwacha's surge provides breathing room, a window of opportunity. But windows close. The real test isn't whether Zambia can enjoy a temporary currency rally. It's whether the government can use this moment to fundamentally restructure an economy that has been commodity dependent since colonial times. So where does this leave us? Zambia's currency surge is real. It's measurable. It's providing genuine relief to millions of Zambians who have watched their purchasing power erode for years. The debt restructuring was a diplomatic triumph. The copper rally is fortuitous timing. The government deserves credit for maintaining fiscal discipline during a period when many nations have abandoned restraint. But economic history teaches us humility. It teaches us that commodity booms end. That global markets are fickle. That structural problems require structural solutions, not just favorable external conditions. The question now is whether Zambia's leaders and its citizens recognize this currency surge for what it is, not a destination, but a departure point. An opportunity that must be seized with urgency, wisdom, and an unflinching recognition that favorable winds eventually change direction. We'll be watching. We'll be questioning. And we'll be here to tell you what happens next. Thank you for watching another edition of InspirAfrica Official. The story of Zambia's economic resurrection is far from over, and neither is our coverage. What do you think? Is this the beginning of sustainable transformation, or are we witnessing another false dawn? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one, and your perspectives from across the continent matter. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories that matter, more voices that need to be heard, and more truth that demands to be told. Until then, this is Nakash, reminding you to stay informed, stay critical, and never stop questioning.